Hi, everyone. Dr. Eli Camp here, and welcome to Vital Wisdom, where we're talking about the body's ability to heal itself, giving it what it needs, getting poisons out that might be creating a toxic environment, and stimulating that natural healing ability. And today I am really excited and feel most honored to have one of my teachers, Dr. Rick Kirschner, here to chat and to tell us about a new book he's written and whatever else happens to come up. Before I started recording, we were just talking about geoengineering and aliens and snow and weather and all of that stuff. So I don't know that we'll circle back around to that, but thank you so much for taking the time to come and chat with me on Vital Wisdom.
Happy to be here. Nice to see you, Eli.
It's nice to see you too. So tell our listeners a little bit about you and uh, how you, of course, they're very interested in naturopathic doctors and medicine, but I think I have a pretty diverse audience who like to hear about a lot of different things, which is why I'm excited to talk about your new book today.
Cool. Well, I don't really have much to say about myself. I don't really I grew up in Ohio. I don't like talking about myself very much, but um, I'm getting older, 76, going on 77. Feel like I'm entering always feel like I'm entering a new chapter of my life. I'm uh, live up here in North Idaho. Got a beautiful place here. I'm looking outside. It's a gorgeous day. The miracle of nature is ever present in my life. Some days I just stand out in the yard with my cats. They're staring, I'm staring. We're just taking it all in. How absolutely miraculous the whole thing is. So,
Mm-hmm.
written some books, made a movie, got a website, all that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You know, I heard about you long before I met you. All, you know, all good things, but but diverse, right? I think the very first time I heard about you was when someone said, well, you know who did the AANP website? The AANP is our national organization. They are charged with protecting naturopathic doctors legislatively, right? They watch for legislation that's not good for us and other things. They do conferences. And when I was a student, I had gone to the website early on and looked around. And then I had gone back and it was all different. And the first time I had gone there, it was wonderful. It was easy to navigate. I had no trouble. And then somebody put their thinking cap on and thought it ought to be all changed up. And this is how the conversation came up. And they were like, well, you know, the first person who did the website was Rick Kirschner. And I guess, they just didn't like his work. And I was like, well, they ought to bring him back because it used to be really easy. And that's the very first time I heard your name. And then, of course, since then, I learned all this other great stuff about you. So,
Well, that's very fun. The whole world was just discovering the internet, and I don't like to be at the end of the line. I'd rather be at the front of the line, find out what's going on before anybody else. And I just thought, I ought to learn how to build websites. This is a thing. It's going to be a bigger thing. I should learn how to do it. So I volunteered to do it for the AAMP, and then just got to work. And I built a really cool site. It had so many great features. It was
yep,
fun to look at. I connected us to the world. I was trading links with what is it? WebMD, Environmental
yeah.
News Network. All of us knew each other, the webmasters. It was very fun, and I did it as long as I could. I did it for years, but one day my wife said, "You've got to quit working on this website and pay attention to your business." And so I told them, I said, I'm resigning from the job of webmaster. And they go, "You can't." And I'm like, "And yet I'm going to." And so then they bribed me. And I used to brag that I was the first person that ever got anything back from this profession because they gave me an Apple G4 tower with a cinema display for 6 more months. So
Oh,
I stuck
wow.
around for 6 more months and it was, $2,500, but just the thought that someone's going to give me that as a gift. I'm like, all right, I'll keep doing it. And then I stopped, and I think they went for like a year without anybody to do the website and wound up going to some industrial kind of corporate looking whatever. But it
Yeah.
was very fun to learn. And as a result, I still build websites. In fact, for the Naturopathic Medicine Academy, the textbook project that I'm leading right now, I built that website. So if anyone wants to see a fun website, go check out naturemedacademy.org and my own website, talknatural.com. So yeah, I still play around with it, although it's no longer a big interest for me.
Right.
Um, and this book really became as fascinating to me, this new book, as working on the website was back in the day, because I'm now at that stage of life where legacy is the most important thing for me. I want to leave the world better off than I found it. It's not easy to do because people seem to be working against me in so many ways, but to leave the world better. So I thought, I have all of this material that I've never published. I've taught it. I still teach it. I work with a few students every year, mentoring and coaching. I have clients around here that I work with for free, teaching this material. And I thought, I should try to capture some of this and do something
Mhm.
with it. And the book pretty much talked to me about what it wanted to be. And I wound up with this really fun, skinny little book. And it's sort of the culmination of all the lessons I've learned in my life. Stop making life so hard.
Yeah, no, we all need that. We all need that. So I know I can't wait to get a copy of it because who doesn't want their life to be less hard?
Life is hard. I'm not making the claim that life will stop being challenging. It's the nature of our existence that we are challenged in order to grow. It's true all through nature and it's true in our lives as well. But we don't have to compound the difficulty of it.
No.
So this is all about how to take your side in the journey of life instead of working against yourself, how to reduce friction. It's not like people are broken. They work hard, they care deeply, they do what seems reasonable given the circumstances, all that stuff. But I don't think life has to be that heavy. And,
Hmm.
and especially at a time like this, Eli, you probably are finding this out in your conversations with people all the time, how heavy the world seems for people,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
So I don't think it has to be that way, no matter what's going on. And so that's really what I decided to write about.
That is so cool. Well, it, yes, people right now in my conversations, I can hear the weight on their shoulders. I can hear the weight in their beings between money and environment. And did you know? So, I've been dabbling a little bit and having conversations with Chat GPT. I
Oh
couldn't
yeah.
help myself.
Yeah.
I'm not using it like a lot of people are using it, which is to produce writing and stuff like that. What I'm really enjoying is simply having a conversation and asking questions. So one of the questions I asked about a month ago, it was late. I was a little loopy because I was tired, but I had this thought pop in my mind, which is, has there ever been one day where globally there was no war? Have we ever had, that we know of, a day of peace? Because in my mind, however any of you think of God, I think of this being or this force, this energy that is experiencing physical life through humans. That this is sort of, you know, how I think of the creator, right? That because if you're an energy form, you can't smell or taste or probably even see in the same way we see, right? And so I was thinking to myself, surely after thousands and thousands of years, whatever God is, maybe does it ever yearn to know what peace is, what peace and harmony are? Like, I can't believe in all that time it wouldn't yearn for that. And so I said, has there ever been a time? And you know, it answered me with maybe back in 15,000 or 10,000 BC, because we lack, it's not that we have evidence of peace, but we lack evidence of war being written and drawn on cave walls and canyon walls. And there wasn't, they think, that many people. So maybe it's just because nobody came across other people to fight with. But from the time we start to have writings and history recorded, there's they couldn't say that the, there's no evidence that there's ever been one day, not even one day, in all these thousands of years. So we talked a little bit more about why that might be and what could happen and could it ever be any different. And by then I was exhausted, I had to go to sleep. But that has stuck with me because the conversations I was having with people, a lot of them feel this weight of all of this fighting that's happening in the world.
Well, it's happening within them too. And in fact, that's one of the chapters in the book is it's the chapter on resonance, which is the idea that when you have parts of yourself in conflict with each other, then you're creating friction in your life and making things harder for yourself than they need to be. And that includes parts of you that have habits that you hate and parts of you that have uh, problems with health that you don't like and all of that, that as long as you are in opposition to any part of yourself, you're creating unnecessary friction and making your life harder than it needs to be. And if you really want to heal some of that stuff, you have to make peace with those parts of yourself and welcome them into the circle of your life instead of keeping them on the outside. So we don't do this well as humans with other humans. So it's a challenge for us to do it with ourselves because the world is sort of an outpicturing of our basic relationship with ourselves. So I wrote about this idea of resonance, of meeting yourself and
Mm.
appreciating the challenges that parts of yourself face. Those parts of yourself that do things you don't like are trying to serve you in some way. And when you welcome them into the circle of your existence and say, all right, let's learn about you, you may discover better ways to take care of something that's really essential to your life. So whether we can solve the problem of war in the world or not, I think we can solve the problem of the war within ourselves. And I think when we do that, we no longer are in conflict with the people around us, regardless of their opinions or behavior. And I co-authored the book Dealing with People You Can't Stand. It's all about bad behavior. And the basic idea of that book was that people do terrible things for what they consider to be good reasons. So if you want to
Hmm.
solve a problem with people, you have to meet them on the place of they're well-intentioned and poorly behaved instead of they're bad people. And one of the
Hmm.
things we've been witnessing in our culture and our society, and I've experienced it personally, this cancel culture thing, or this thing where people throw up their hands and say, you don't agree with me, therefore I can no longer entertain the idea of talking with you. I'm like, well, I know how you're living your life. You do that with you, so of course you're going to do that with me. Let me know when you settled that with yourself. I'm still available.
Right. Right. Yeah, well, those kinds of conversations, those kinds of debates, those disagreements, those sorting out, what do you think, what do I think, what do you believe, what do I believe, used to be a way, I think, that humans grew and discovered what else is there to know. Like, we can't possibly know everything there is to know. Like, and that journey of discovering what else is there to know. So, do you remember Preeti Shaw?
Yeah, I think
She's
so.
a naturopath. You met
Yeah.
her a couple of times, but it's been a long time. I told her this about the no day of peace, and we ended up talking about love. And she said to me, well, what do you think has to be there in order for people to love one another? And my first response was different than the second, what I came to as I talked about it out loud. My first response was, well, I think they need food and water. They need to be okay. Because if you're not okay, how can you make sure someone else is okay? And then as we talked, I was like, I think it's even simpler than that. If you don't love yourself, or at least accept yourself for who you are, how can you give that to somebody else? Truly, like genuinely.
Yeah, I think that's really true. That your life, your relationship with yourself in life determines your relationship with everything else. So when you
Hmm.
make peace with yourself, whether it's what is it when you're a teenager, when you're a young person growing up, your body doesn't make sense. It does things you don't comprehend. It has things appear on it that you can't get rid of. Yeah, people are judging it all the time.
Yeah.
There's like this is good, this is bad, this is good, this is bad, and you can't win. There's no safe harbor for you. So that's sort of the place where we start. We learn habits of thought and habits of action, habits of behavior that actually create friction for years in our life, and that's the challenge of life, is to work that stuff out. And one of the things I tried to do with the book was avoid preaching or talk, any kind of here's what you need to do. There's none of that in this book. In fact, I wrote this so that you can relax into it and discover how true it is for you. And in the discovery of it, I believe it's a calming force. Uh, but I'm not telling anybody what to do with this book, unlike dealing with people you can't stand, which is all recipes and strategies and tactics and all this kind of. This is really a relax into this and find yourself, because who you are is a miracle, absolute miracle. And loving who you are, all of who you are, warts and all, is the foundation of a life well lived. So,
Well, I think you have to live into life and get to a place like where you're at, right? Where you don't leave this world prematurely without having learned some really important lessons. And I'm really excited. So you decided to do a hardcover.
I did. I wanted it to be something that you could pass on. You could give this to a child or a grandchild at some point if you found it
Hmm.
useful. I just like the idea this will continue in the world when I'm gone.
Hmm.
Whether that's true or not, I like the idea of it, and it was enough to motivate me to do it this way. But it's, you can get it on Kindle. It's you don't have to. Printing a book is expensive these days, and I wouldn't blame anybody for avoiding it. But I did want it to be something that you could pass on. And in fact, I bought a few copies to hand to people that come to my house, just to keep something going in the world.
Hmm. Well, I wanted to do my books in hardcover, but they were so prohibitively expensive to
Oh,
do it
it's
in
ridiculous.
hardcover.
Just ridiculous. Yeah. And I remember how cheap it was, because once upon a time I did two self-published books on persuasion. And as I recall, it was something like $8 or something like that to have a book printed. Easy peasy. And now it's like,
Hmm.
25, $30. And
Hmm.
especially if you do a hardcover. But
Hmm.
some things are worthwhile, and
Hmm.
I hope that this has that kind of value, that somebody somewhere is going to want that. But whether they do or not, it was the doing of it that was fulfilling for me.
Oh, I can only imagine that.
Yeah.
It's probably things you've talked to people about for a long time and that
Oh
needed to
yeah.
be put down in one central place. So you don't have to keep saying, now you can say, oh, do I have a book for you?
Yeah. Yeah. Here, read this. Well,
Well, that's,
I
oh, go
I
ahead.
love teaching. I
Yeah.
love working with people. I love helping people develop and advance themselves in directions they want to go. That's really, I've been doing that for my whole adult life. So I'm going to keep doing that kind of stuff. And there's stuff that's not in this little book that would be part of, if you were working with me, I'd go deep on some of this stuff. And I didn't want this book to be like that. I wanted it to be a very easy read, an easy lift, something you might even read to somebody else as a way of facilitating their own self advancement. But yeah, this is I think this is the greatest hits of everything I've ever learned. It's a 10-word system that I developed over the years, and each word leads to the next word, and so by the time you get to the end, it's full circle. You want to hear the words?
I would love to hear the words. I was going to ask you.
All right, great. Well, the first word is word, as in
Word.
yeah, as in giving and keeping your word. It's the difference between I'd like something to happen and this will happen. Because if you can't count on yourself, things aren't going to happen for you. I have a story about this in the book, but the bottom line is that until you can trust yourself with the word you give yourself, nobody else can count on you either. And so your life can't really work out properly. It just creates complexity. So the second word is story. And story is about the way our narratives shape our experiences, the way we describe things to ourselves, the stories we carry about ourselves, the cultural stories we carry, all of that. When you're growing up, people tell you stories about who you are, where you are, and what's supposed to happen. And if you're carrying a story that is self-defeating, that is impeding your ability to live a high quality life, change your story, you might change your life. The third word is resonate. Resonate is what you have to do in order to gain trust and cooperation with anyone. And that includes with your pets. You got to vibe with them. They got to be on the same frequency. You can't be talking down or talking up. You got to be talking with, you got to resonate. So it's all about how we resonate. And there's a skill involved that I teach called blending that's being intentional about resonating. But in the book, I make the point that this includes your parts, the parts of you. All parts of you have to resonate with each other for the trust to occur where change can happen naturally. So the fourth word is understand. I think understanding is essential if you want to engage your own motivation. If you want to affect your own habits, you have to understand yourself. It's not enough to meet yourself. You have to actually get what's going on with you. So that's also true in relationships. What's the fun thing? You ever had somebody say to you, "You're not listening to me," and you heard them say it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, clearly you were listening to them if you heard them say it.
Right,
So, right? But the smartest response I ever learned to "you're not listening to me" is, "How would you know if I was listening to you?" Right? Not, "Yes, I am." No, it'd be like, "Oh, well, how would you know if I was listening to you?" And then maybe they'd say, "Well, you'd nod your head and grunt occasionally." And you'd be like, "Oh," and now you don't even have to listen. You just go, "Uh-huh, oh." By understanding how somebody puts their world together, you're able to enter their world and create change. By understanding how you've put your world together, you can enter your own world and create change. The next word is influence. And influence is what you do when you understand something. Now you want to move it. So this is all about engaging, connecting good ideas and recommendations to internal resources and motivations that already exist. So in working with patients, for example, I didn't want to take their time and their money. I wanted to help them. I wanted to influence them. I wanted them to be better as a result of working with me than when they first arrived at my office. Well, influence is definitely a skill, but it's also something that occurs quite naturally if you work from word to story to resonate to understand. Influence falls right in that place. So I explore that. The next word is habit. because uh, we're all creatures of habit. Every person you'll ever meet is a creature of habit, and being able to change a habit is the key to success in anything. I know you have made big moves in your life, and you had to take on habits that impeded you in those big moves, and you did. You were able to change us. So I explore, what does that mean? And I have to say, once this book was done, I thought I might just do a book on habits, because there's so
Right.
much to say about it. I think of habits as being three kinds of habits: simple, complex, impossible.
Oh,
Simple
I like
is,
that.
it's learning to tie your shoes. It's a simple habit. Complex habit means it's doing something for you and it will not yield until you find a better way to take care of it. Impossible to change habits are triggered by all kinds of things. You can't pin anything down, and you have these intense emotional responses to them. So it seems impossible to do anything about those kind of habits. It's not, but I put it in that category because of how it seems perceptually. So anyway, so that's habit. The next word is purpose. I think that a
Mm,
sense of purpose is the foundation of the highest quality of life. And a lack of purpose is at the root of most of people's complaints and health challenges. I really do. I
mm-hmm.
think that if somebody's struggling with their health, there's an empty slot in their life that's the most important place and they need to fill it. And, the beauty of the work that you and I have done in our lives is we've had a strong sense of purpose. We were drawn into natural medicine with a sense of purpose. We worked with our patients with a sense of mission. So that has yielded so much benefit for both of us in our lives because we have that purpose. But for some people, purpose is like this grand aha that they're waiting to have happen. But it's not rocket science to have a sense of purpose. And I actually show just how naturally a sense of purpose emerges for anybody that wants to know what that is, because we all have a purpose. What is it? I think it was Francis Bacon that said, here's how to know if your mission on earth is finished. If you're alive, it isn't.
There you go. Yes.
Right? Okay.
Right.
So should I keep going?
Yes.
Okay, all right.
Yes.
So the next word is support. And support is what you want in life if you don't want to be isolated. And support is what you need in life in order to succeed at anything. So, otherwise, if we get isolated in our existence, we wind up defeated by adversity. We wind up lost sometimes, cut off from the world around us. So you have to build support for yourself throughout your life. And that's not just friends. I have a whole array of things that you can populate your safety net in life with that really give you that sense of I'm covered. Somebody's got my back, somebody got my front, somebody's carrying me. I've got the support that I need in life. And by the way, the last few years have taken away so many supports for so many people that I know, as people canceled each other, quit talking to each other, hated on each other for having a different worldview. I've lost some of my dearest friends. I have a very close relative that I love who refuses to talk to me, all because they can't tolerate that I see the world differently than them. And that's okay with me. I'm still here, and if they ever call, I will act like nothing has changed, because for me, nothing has changed. I'm still part of an available support system for others. But here's the trick about support. So we've all been trained in this meme that 'tis better to give than to receive.
Yeah.
But the reality of life is that you cannot give unless somebody receives, because giving and receiving go hand in hand. And sometimes the greatest gift we give one another is receiving each other's gifts. And that is the foundation of support. So the next word is a word I made up, and it's the word teamship. And it's three words in one. Three words in one. It's leadership, relationship, and teamwork. Because, for example, you're building a business, a practice, or a farm. You need a team of people to make your dreams happen. If you just try to do everything on your own, it's overwhelming. But when you've got a team that you can count on, that's on board with you, all things become possible. Many hands make light work. So teamship, I explore what is involved in building a team. And it's not a lecture and it's not a hack. It's literally, this is how it happens. Know this and allow it to happen. The next word, and it's the last word, is integrity. And this is where we come full circle with the word. So I define integrity as a state of being complete, undivided, and unimpaired, of living in truth with yourself. And I think when we help people heal, we're helping them become whole. That's why the word heal and whole are so similar. Wholesome, holy, holistic. They're all dancing around this idea of integrity, of being complete, undivided, and unimpaired. So here are you and we are two whole systems creating another whole system between us. The integrity of that system is still there, but some people live without the knowledge of their integrity. And this reminds me of something that Cecil B. DeMille once said when he was making the movie The Ten Commandments. He said, the universe has laws, and you cannot break those laws, but you can break yourself against those laws. So I am living in integrity with the universe, with nature, with the way life actually works, instead of fighting, withdrawing, or fawning, trying to gain some kind of advantage from the dust of civilization. I'm living as a whole human being. I don't need people. I want people. I'm in a marriage and it's not 50-50. It's 100, it's 100. I love my wife with all my heart, mind, and soul, and whatever makes her happy, I support it. She loves me with all her heart, mind, and soul. Whatever makes me happy, she supports it. She does not need to change a thing for my life to work, and I don't need to change a thing for her life to work. That's integrity. So that's the 10-word system. I've taught this for years. I have so many examples and illustrations, and I really had to be very selective to put it together in this skinny little book. And I'm so happy with how it turned out. And I farmed it out to a few people to get feedback. And I thought people just read it cover to cover because it's 100 pages, no big deal. Every person that's tried to read it gets so far and stops and goes, I'm really working with this, da-da-da-da-da. I'm like, okay, that's very cool. I love that.
That is the sign of a good book that is reaching people, I think, on a deep level.
Yep.
When you can only read so much and now you have a concept that you really have to think about. Like, it gets your attention. And what are you going to do with this concept now? Well, I think people who are trying to be better or do better, right? That they're trying to do better. We look for things like that. I put myself in that category. I want to end every day knowing something I didn't know, or having helped in the world in some way I hadn't helped before, or sometimes it's just knowing I was present for someone that needed me, right? But I want to do that every day. And I look for things like this. It sounds like I need to get a copy for my husband and for my teenagers, like, right? So I love this sort of, let's take a look inside of ourselves and understand how we interact with the world kind of stuff for my teenagers. Um,
Well, my subtitle is Field Guide to Being a Better Human.
oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. Oh, I'm so excited. So, uh, I'll remind you, you're supposed to tell me how I can order it.
Oh,
Because I want, can I order it?
yes.
Like,
If you go to my website, talknatural.com, you'll see the image of the book and tells you how to get the Kindle or the hardcover.
Okay.
So yeah, it's real easy. Talknatural.com.
Okay. So we'll do that and say a few words about your first book, dealing with people you can't stand, because I loved that book as well. And I know that you had sort of like, well, I thought of it as kind of like an instruction manual almost. Um, when did you write that?
Well, the first version came out in 1994, and it took 4 years to make it happen. The fourth version, which is huge, it's gotten so big.
Wow.
We revised the entire, Rick and I revised the entire book with everything we'd learned since 1994 and addressed some of the big issues that we're dealing with in society now. So, for example, social media, cancel culture. What do you do in these situations? How do you talk about something with somebody that doesn't want to talk with you about something? How do you repair a relationship that's fallen apart over all this kind of nonsense? So we added all that into People You Can't Stand, plus kept the best parts of the very first version. So we just did that. I think maybe it's been a year and a half since that came out, the fourth edition. Um, the basic model in dealing with people you can't stand is that people do what they do for a reason they consider to be a good one. So if people are yelling, there's a good reason for that. If people are being negative and shooting all your ideas down, they do that for what they think is a good reason. If people are flaky, wishy-washy, indecisive, and don't follow through, there's a reason for that. And if people are hogging all the oxygen in the room because they want, look at me, listen to me, I'm somebody, there's a reason for that. So the point of that model is that if you have a good reason for a bad behavior, it gives you a vector of approach to meeting people where they are so you can redirect what they're doing towards something that's more effective. And what did we do? We came up with the 10 most unwanted in the first book. The tank, sniper, grenade, know it all, think
Yep.
they know it all. Yes, no, maybe, nothing, and the whiner. And then in this volume, we actually have a family section where we talked about the
Oh,
martyr and the meddler. And what do you do with those people? What do you do with somebody that's like into your life? Or what do you do with somebody like, oh, I get so hard? So we explored all of that. And what we tried to do is lay out very simple strategies, usually 3 to 5 steps that you take in order to redirect what those people are doing. And the fact that we've been asked to do this fourth edition after all of these years, that this book still is going. I just got a royalty check today for this book. So people are still reading this book. It's still affecting them. My co-author, Rick Brinkman, another naturopathic doctor, told me that last year he said he got a call from a college student in Virginia that the whole class had gotten a hold of the book and they all bought a copy of it because it had made such a difference for a couple of people. So yeah, I'm very happy about that book. I definitely feel like we did something really valuable with it. But I
mhm.
didn't want to live my life being the difficult people guy.
Right.
So
Right.
I went on to other things.
Right. No, I hear you. Well, you never know what someone's going to say that can deeply and profoundly affect another human, completely change the trajectory of their life, right?
Well,
So I'm
I want
glad.
to be that person. I love the idea of that I'm leaving some kind of legacy with the choices that I make, that people are somehow better for knowing me. And whether it's true or not, it's a great story to tell.
Hmm. Especially if it makes sense, right? You
Yep.
know, there was a post on, I don't spend a lot of time on social media. I don't have the time to spend. I'm growing plants and raising animals and raising teenagers and being a doctor and being an author and being a teacher and just being me. Like, I like to go outside when it's dark and look up at the stars. Like, I have such an imagination for what might be out there. And sometimes I feel like I got dropped off by a ship in my early life and they forgot to come and get me. And not that they abandoned me, but they just forgot. Like they forgot to stop. The ship didn't stop at Earth and pick up all the people.
Yeah.
And you know, I was a little upset about that for a portion of my life. And sometimes when I'm out there looking at the stars, I'll say out loud, "Where'd you go? What
Yeah.
happened? I'm still here."
Circle back for crying out loud. Yeah.
But so someone posted, so a few minutes a day, I'll pop in, I'll say happy birthday to people, and the first 10 things that may come across my feed, I'll read. Sometimes I'm like, wow, that's really cool. I might look more. But the other day, somebody posted a picture of four people, an elderly lady, a guy in a cast, a pregnant woman, and a woman carrying a child, and they were all standing probably on what looks like a train, like the subway train. And the question was, who should get to
I
sit
saw
down?
this. I saw this. Yes.
Who should get to sit down? And so many people engaged with this, and it caught my attention. It was one of those posts that catches my attention, and I was reading the replies, and people felt very, very strongly about
Yeah.
who should be the person to sit down in the seat. And I'm reading this and it was all different. Like some people thought the elderly lady, like, and they would argue it. Some people just said, a one word answer, but some people really got into this. And I thought to myself, well, if I got onto a train and there was an empty seat and those four people were standing, I sure as heck wouldn't sit down, first of all. But
Yeah.
let's say I was there and I was sitting down and these people get on the train. Who am I to decide which of those people should get the seat?
Yeah.
That's not my business. What's my business is me and how I resonate with that situation. And my post was, I would just get up. I would just get up and leave the seat empty. And whoever really needs that seat can sit down. And maybe other people might see me do that and they might do it too, but I don't care if they do or they don't. But it struck me quickly. People feel the need to tell everybody else what's right and wrong.
Yeah. Well, that's a basic feature of human nature is the need to be right. So here's how that works. And we talked about this in People You Can't Stand. It starts with whatever you assume, you're going to act like that assumption is true and then look for proof so that you can be right. And the reason you're going to do that is so that you think you know who you are, where you are, and what's going on. Because if you made an assumption and tried to disprove it, who would you be? And yet the scientific method is actually what liberates us from this need to be right because you test your assumptions to find out what's true. So
Yes,
the need to be right is all conflict on this planet is I'm right, no, I'm right, or you're wrong, no, you're wrong. That all conflict boils down to this need to be right.
yes, yes. I so agree with you. And I think when I was younger, I had the overwhelming need to be right. I say younger until I was probably in my early 20s. I had an overwhelming need to be right. But that's because as a child, when I was wrong, that was painful in so many ways, emotionally, physically. It was painful to be wrong. And so it took me a long time to heal from that, to change that story.
Yeah.
Well, actually, just to get rid of the story. Really, it took a long time. And I finally figured out me, like, I don't really care if I'm right or wrong. I don't. Not anymore. Not for a long time. But I want to see what's happening. I want to experience the world. I want to feel what I feel and understand what I'm feeling. But I also don't want other people to well, I don't actually care. People can tell me I'm wrong. I know what I feel. I know what I see. I know how it affects me, and I know how I want to behave, how I choose to behave in a situation. And it's okay with me if I'm wrong. It can still hurt, especially if it's family and friends,
Oh
right?
yeah. Yeah.
I was very wrong, supposedly, about COVID. I was very wrong.
And then it turned out you were
That I
very
wasn't so
right.
wrong.
Yeah.
I wasn't so wrong after all.
Yeah. You know, that the need to be right. It's such a, what you're describing is to me the perfect evolution of the need to be right and the need to understand and to learn, to be open to what I don't know instead of constantly proving what I think I do know. So that's the miraculous quality of nature and of life, is that when you open yourself up to it and you go, I don't need to know. I just want to pay attention and see what I can gather. And Bucky Fuller always used to describe human beings as information gatherers on spaceship Earth. That's actually what we're all doing, is gathering information. I think that's such an interesting frame of reference, right?
Hmm.
So my father, when the internet first came along, we got my dad an iMac, the bubblegum looking one, the pretty
Yeah,
colored one.
yeah.
And he told me, he lived to be 91. He told me towards the end of his life, he said, I'm trying to read the internet. I thought that was so cool. He said, there's so much to find out. I'm trying to
Yeah.
read the whole internet. And I thought, yeah, that's to dream the impossible dream. Good luck. It just keeps multiplying, but go for it, Dad. And he would tell me all these things that he did not know, that he found out, that he's like, whoa, I had no idea about that. So I think that that curiosity about life, I watch my cats in the yard. We're walking in the same places every day. I got a fence around the property and I have them on a leash. I walk my cats on a leash and they cooperate, which is very cool. But anyway, I'm walking them around the yard and they go to all the same places. They go over and over and over again. But every time they're so fascinated and curious about it this time,
Right now.
this time, right now, this time. We're over in the corner of the yard. 1,000 times we've been to that corner of the yard. But what is it like this time? And they're just completely mesmerized by right now what's happening. I think that's a wonderful. Sometimes I think that cats are more evolved than humans. That if I may put this into a biblical perspective, that humans ate from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and so we're constantly going right and wrong, good and bad, right and wrong, good and bad. The cats never ate from that tree; they ate from the tree of life. So they're just like, hey, oh, whoa,
Oh,
hey, yeah, no
check
good,
it
bad, no
out.
right, wrong.
I agree. I agree. Well, having so many farm animals, I see this constantly.
Oh yeah.
Right here, right now, we babysit our eldest son's dog. He's 40 something, 42, I think, this year. And he moved into our driveway in an RV, which is fine. I mean, it's fine. He's out there. I can't hear his video games and his music, so it doesn't keep me up at night. But he has this massive pony-sized dog named Emrys. Um, and he got a job, yay for him, several months ago. Because he hasn't developed the entrepreneurial, I can work for myself and actually send invoices to people skills. So working for someone else who gives him a paycheck is a very good option. Well, what we didn't realize is that because he's living in an RV in the driveway, no one really thought very far down the line to what's going to happen with this pony-sized dog while he's at work, 8 or
Oh
10 hours a day. Well, mom and dad became the babysitter
yeah.
of the grandson, Emrys pony dog. And he's a lovely creature, but he's kind of like how you describe your cats. He goes and checks everything out that he has checked out a million times, and his tail's wagging and he's so excited and turns around and looks at us like, "Did you see this? You believe this is
Yeah.
happening?"
Look, a tree. Whoa.
I know. It's so great. It's so great.
I'll
Anyway,
tell you,
time.
I do
Go ahead.
this when I'm walking the cats. It really, the best thing about walking the cats is that it puts me outside for about an hour a day. Because I give each of them a half an hour to go wherever they want in the yard. We've got a nice piece of property. We got a forest in the backyard. We got all kinds of zones, that they're not aware of at all, but they know where all these places are. And I just, I love being outdoors. And my wife hates being cold, so in the wintertime it's all on me. But I just love it. I just love what's the weather like? Oh wow. What's happening in that corner of the yard? I love watching their curiosity, their fascination. And you know where else you see that is when when kids are little.
Yes.
They're wandering the world. They're like, whoa, 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 look, whoa, wow. I think that
Yes.
that beginner's mind, that's what we're really describing, is
Yes.
a wonderful characteristic for enjoying life.
I think so too. I just told a homeschooling mom yesterday. She has a 3-year-old, and the 3-year-old doesn't know how to read yet, apparently. And I said, Well, what I'm just wondering what about that bothers you so much because there's so much to learn. There's time to learn how to read. Like, does your child get fascinated by a snail crawling on the ground or listening to, we have so many birds, right? Being outside the city. It's a noisy world, you
Yeah, it
know?
is.
But
Yeah.
one of my friends said, "Oh, it must be so quiet where you live." And I was like, "No, really, it's not. It's a symphony of sound. The
Yeah.
cicadas and the frogs and the birds and what I don't hear are planes and cars and I can't hear my neighbor because I don't even see my neighbor. But it's not a quiet world out here. It's
No.
full of all kinds of music and song. And I wasn't trying to convince mom of anything. I was trying to put her at ease that her child will learn to read. But what she's reading, is it what she's supposed to be reading right now? Like learning to read the world and learning to read nature and understanding these things to me seems like such an important thing to do with a 3-year-old versus reading words on a page which she couldn't possibly deeply comprehend yet.
Not yet. I'm, by the way, working on a children's book right now.
Of
That's
course
my
you
next
are.
project.
Of
Yeah.
course you are. Oh, I love that. I love that.
I want to tell you a story.
Tell me.
So when I was a little boy, my actual friend drowned, and I
Oof.
found him.
Oh,
So, okay, I was like 6 years old, and I became very depressed and withdrawn, and life became a thing that you get up and you go through the motions, and I was very dissociated, and I stayed in that state for quite a while. Anyways, I don't know how old you are in second grade, but but maybe it's 7, 8, something like
seven,
that.
7, 8,
Something like
something
that.
like that.
Anyway, I'm sitting in a branch library of the Cincinnati Library at the Roselawn Mall. It's just a strip mall in Cincinnati, probably 64 or something like that, 63, something like that. And I'm sitting in the library waiting for my mom to pick me up. I just got a haircut from Carl the Nazi, and I'm waiting for her because he had a flat top haircut. Anyway, I'm waiting for my mom to pick me up, and I'm staring out the window at nothing. And all around me are books. And my second grade teacher walks into the library, and I'm in one of these little chairs, little painted chairs, and she pulls up a little painted chair next to me, and she reaches across the table and pulls a book in front of me and taps the cover. I can still see her fingernail. Taps the cover of the book, and she goes, "Ricky, what do you see?" And I said, "A book." And she said, "I see a doorway." And when I open it and she opened the cover of the book, I step into another world. Whoa! Fundamentally changed my life. Turned me into I was reading college level books by sixth grade. I couldn't read. I was reading a sci-fi book every single day at one point. I could not read enough. And then I wound up being a writer. So that one moment in that library with that little dissociated boy changed my life and anybody whose life I've affected with my speaking and writing. I love seeing that connection, getting to live long enough to bring that all the way back around. So if somebody wants their child to want to read, be curious and fascinated. And she modeled a behavior to me that I did not have and made it so appealing. I could step into another one. I'm like, whoa. And by the way, I still remember that book. It was Tall Tales of America. It had Paul Bunyan on the cover with his red and black plaid shirt and his big blue ox babe. And it had Pecos Pete and John Henry and all these stories, Tall Tales of America. I remember that book like I'm sitting in that library right now to this day. And that's what, 70 years ago? That's amazing. So we have this opportunity in the lives of everyone that we know, and especially with our children, to model an interest in this world and this life. And, you know, when I was little, I thought I also was from another planet, was sent here on a mission.
You
I
did.
did. Oh yeah, I totally did. Absolutely did. I could even, I'm not going to tell the story now, but I could tell you the story of why I believe that, but I totally believe that. And that stayed with me for many, many years. And finally somebody fixed me when I was in naturopathic school. He gave me an affirmation that says, I am from Earth and I like it. Like, because I had not gotten to that place yet. But
Got there yet.
But I believed I was from another world and I was sent here on a mission. I feel like when somebody opens a door for you, when somebody shares an insight with you, when you talk with her about looking at the world as something to read, those moments have ripples through time that we don't get to witness, but we can be sure that they're happening. So you touch that kid's life through that mother, just through that interaction. You'll never know, but it happened.
Well, that makes my heart glow just a little bit. Thank you for that.
Yep.
Wow, I cannot believe that hour went by so fast. There's so many things I thought I was going to talk to you about. Um, next time, next
Sure.
time. We should do this a few times a year
I
where we
love it.
record our conversation for other people to sort of eavesdrop in. I just want to tell y'all, I've had some of the most amazing conversations with this man and with his colleagues who have also become my colleagues, just understanding life in a different way because there's so many ways to understand life. Thank you for being here. Good luck with your book.
Thank you.
Um, I can't wait to get my copy of it. I really am getting my husband his own copy.
Well, I
We're
appreciate
happy. So
letting me talk about it.
when you said, you know how when someone says, "You're not listening to me," I must say that to him 5 times a day. So that in particular is very interesting to me. So
How would you
if
know if I
you're
was
listening,
listening to you?
oh,
By the way, that's called the evidence question. It's like, what is the evidence that's missing for you?
maybe I just need to tell him. Do you want to know how I know if you're listening to me?
Yeah, yeah. Let me help you. Let me give you a clue.
Absolutely. Well, I hope you have a wonderful spring up there in Idaho, and you still have your chickens?
Oh yeah, four of them. There,
Oh, good.
and we're now back at 4 eggs a day. So
Excellent, excellent. We have about 40.
Oh
But we
boy.
also supply our community with eggs. So, all right, my friend, my colleague, Dr. Rick Kirschner, good luck with everything, and I will talk to you soon.
Great. Great to see you, Eli. Talknatural.com. I'll catch you later.
All right.